appreciate you. Good morning. My name is Dalton. I'm the Business Development Manager for POLOPLAST America, and I'm here to give you a little talk today about the rising costs of using steel in construction, specifically in piping, and what POLOPLAST America can bring to the contractor, to the owner, to the engineer as they go forward with this new world we find ourselves in post federal tariffs. Right? POLOPLAST itself has been around and been a plastics innovator, piping manufacturer for 60 plus years, and we are in international markets with great success. And now the time has come for us to make landfall here in the United States. We'll be headquartered in Houston, and we are headquartered in Houston, and moving forward, the market we find ourselves entering is relatively unstable, maybe more unstable than traditional. If you guys have a background in steel at all, you know that it's a commodity, and so its price changes nearly by the minute, certainly by the day, and definitely can change drastically over short periods of time. So that has, of course, also been impacted by recent federal tariffs on foreign goods, upwards of 25% in current political climates. And so what the market needs, what your mechanical contractors need, is something that they can count on to be a little bit more price stable, and allows them to bid and be competitive and not end up in the red at the end of a particular job. So, being a leader of polypropylene pipe technologies for 6 decades, we've been in the heart of several, hundreds of spectacular jobs around the world: Middle East, Europe, Asia, and soon to be the United States. The benefit of that is not only are we coming into the right market at the right time in terms of lending a stable alternative to steel, but there's also great material advantages to using PPR as your piping solution for HVAC and other applications. I'm going to talk about those here briefly. The first of which is speed. We talk about steel price, but material cost itself is just this much of the bigger window, which is labor and X variables, weather, anything and everything that can affect the cost and timeline of a job, right? And so one of the biggest benefits when you come to use polypropylene versus steel is its weight factor compared to steel pipe. We're about 75–80% lighter than steel. And so when it comes to transport or job site handling, the required resources and time to move move POLOPLAST PPR pipe around and get it into position and installed is severely less resource intensive than your traditional steel piping. It also opens up a number of prefabrication opportunities because you can lift more feet of pipe due to the fact that it's lighter and it's a fused system. Current construction trends are certainly moving towards prefabrication and the benefits of job costs and timeline that prefabricated anything produces. Using heat fusion is also a benefit to our program, to our products, because it takes less time than a traditional steel weld. The steel welding process 1-to-1 is almost always going to take longer than a traditional heat fuse joint using POLOPLAST products, and then that alone, that 1-to-1 comparison, can actually be force multiplied through the use of multiple equipment per technician to really change the landscape of labor costs on a particular job. So, also in terms of faster, when you use a metallic to transport water, the first thing you have to do is make sure that you protect it from the water you want to run through it, and so then we're talking paints and protective liners and coatings, whereas with POLOPLAST you don't need to worry about soil moistures or acidics or any type of protection You simply place the POLOPLAST pipe where you want it to be and move on with your job. Helps you protect that bottom line. So, speaking of protecting, let's talk about how this stuff is a little bit safer, how POLOPLAST can help you be safer on your job and on your install. Namely, the product itself is extremely inert. Polypropylene as a base resin is extremely inert. It does not react with much. So we add no chemicals to it, it's non-toxic, and it doesn't leach or corrode, and it's extremely resilient to your erosion and scaling that you will find in typical HVAC lines. We can also eliminate microbial growth, and the idea is by selecting PPR as your material class, using POLOPLAST will protect your job, not your job, it will protect your system from the degradation that will occur otherwise should you use traditional steel and metallics. The energy also needs a little bit of protection from the steel world, and that metals are a fantastic conductor. But of course, when we spend the energy, consume the energy to treat water, whether it be heated or cooled, we don't want to lose that to the material that we're pushing through that we're pushing it through. Excuse me. And so PPR as a plastic is naturally non-conductive, or certainly less conductive than traditional metals. It's also naturally got a higher R value and is hydrophobic, meaning that water wants nothing to do in terms of interaction with it and will move easily and freely with less energy, less force. Keep your energy costs low, something a little more focused towards the building owner operating costs, right? And then finally, let's protect your people with POLOPLAST. From the construction side, does anybody know the #1 workers' comp claim from steel welding? These baby blues right here, right? Okay, yeah, eyes, because of grinding, torches, sparks, all that sort of stuff. Switch to a product that uses heat fusion like POLOPLAST, all of that goes away. It's not to say that obviously we do have hot equipment, but it's as complex as your range at home. It just gets warm. Okay. So disappear all that. By the way, is a nice side benefit if we're talking money and costs. No more burn permits if we don't have to have open flame, right? Big win. But back to protecting people. Of course, at 80% less weight, that means there's 80% less wear and tear on the human body in general, right? Less physical, strenuous labor. Okay. From the operation side of protecting people, if we don't have to protect the pipe from the corrosive or from its natural interaction with the water passing through it, i.e. get rid of water treatment or extremely reduce it, there's less time handling toxic chemicals, and we can get rid of that aspect. And then finally, we can with a heat fused inert system in place, we are much less likely to incur leaks, and therefore we don't have the hazards that come from potential failures and or large leaks, which will sound pretty smart. And thanks in part to these rising steel prices, PPR is becoming the smart choice for engineers and builders across the U.S. because it's versatile, durable, and it comes with a 10-year warranty on every system sold. So POLOPLAST has grown worldwide because PPR is clearly the superior option, and it's a perfect alternative here in the U.S. It is the perfect alternative here in the U.S. for we'll call it unstable steel material pricing complex that has done nothing but rise for the last year. So if you're ready to add German engineering with a 10-year warranty to your next project, give us contact at poloplast.us. Any questions? It's a great question. The 5-layer ML5 is in reference to a expansion control technology that we co-extrude into the pipe. There are multiple different options available worldwide on how many layers do you put into a pipe. We're the only ones that offer 5. Typically you'll see 1 or 3. We went with 5 just due to our own internal analysis of the 3-layer. We find that the 5-layer has a longer life cycle in terms of resistance to axial expansion. But the original design behind fiberglass layers in the polypropylene is to mitigate thermal expansion, and that as the temperature of the media changes the temperature of the pipe, it will grow and shrink. And unrestrained, that can be quite wild in plastics, and that's oftentimes cited as a benefit to metals, in that metals do that less. At this point, our expansion coefficients are very close to, very similar to copper, just barely larger than copper. Steel it's very manageable, but not quite as close as we are to copper. Answer the question all right for you?
You did, but you brought up a new one. So in terms of expansion coefficient, so it's pretty low, you said?
Yes.
It's very low. So you don't have to give any room for it to summertime versus winter.
Compared to what they're normal, it's all about what are we compared to. If I'm compared to PVC, it's extremely low. It's reduced by quite a lot. Or even traditional polypropylene without any sort of control, HDPE, etc. We perform quite well against most other plastics, and then we're in the ballpark with the metals. So I can give you rough examples. 100-foot run, 100-degree change in temperature. We're going to grow about 2.3 inches. Copper is going to be about 1.1, and steel will be half an inch. So we're talking a matter of a couple of inches as opposed to what would originally be unrestrained polypropylene would be more like 10 inches in that scenario. If that helps give you a benefit analysis there.
The installation, you said you need some kind of heat equipment in order to fuse the joints?
That's correct.
Is that widely available heat equipment? Or
you can't pick it up at maybe your local home and garden store per se, but it certainly is available through the plumbing and industrial, wherever you can go to get welding equipment, you'll be able to find somebody who can get you fusion equipment.
But
as well.
is it price comparable to typical welding equipment, or is it extremely
I wouldn't,
expensive?
to outfit completely, probably not. It may be more expensive initially, but that's one of the benefits of using the system, is that the machinery itself requires, to weld, the guy has to be on that 6-inch weld that he's got to do the three pass on. He's got to be there for all 45 minutes of it doing it, because he's the welder. I get a machine, I put it together, and I get it to a cooling phase and cycle where it's got to be sitting there and the machine's tied up for 12 to 15 minutes. If I have a secondary machine, I'm now making my next joint. Well, traditional welding, he's still tied up there. So looking at it machine cost wise, we're going to be more expensive, but total cost of operation, total cost of install, it's oftentimes absorbed, we'll say. The machine pays for itself very quickly. And also, one of our personal mantras is any first-time user should certainly look to rent before they buy, because there's a lot of options out there, and I don't want to call them application specific, but there's ones that can really shine in certain applications.